Welcome back to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran American war correspondent who's living in Ukraine, reporting from Lviv this week. He also has a YouTube video blog. His name is Philip Ittner, Philipittner. You'll need that to find his video blog on YouTube, and it's really worth checking out and subscribing to. He's also on Twitter as Philip Ittner. Phil, welcome back to the program. I saw that another Russian defense minister or somebody high up in the defense ministry just accidentally fell out of a 10-story window or something like that in Moscow. I mean, and I'm reading reports that this huge Russian surge that was supposed to overwhelm Ukraine earlier this week has kind of fizzled out. What is it look that way from where you are?
Well, I've actually returned from Lviv, so I'm back in Kyiv. But yes, I saw that as well. The finance. It's interesting to note she was actually the finance advisor or a member of the finance department for the Ministry of Defense. So she was the one that was raising the funding, organizing the funding for Putin's war, which even makes it more suspicious as to why it is that yet another member of Putin's, I wouldn't say inner circle, but those who have power in the Russian Federation can't seem to stay their way away from windows and keep kind of falling out of them. It's highly suspicious.
Yeah, it really is. How is what's going on there?
Militarily, it looks as though the Russian offensive that was expected for spring is kind of easing its way into starting. I don't think we've seen the actual full brunt of the offensive yet. What military experts are saying is that this might be the shaping exercise, kind of probing the Ukrainian front lines to see where they have strength and where they have perhaps weaknesses. Mm-hmm. The one exception to that is a town called Volodar, and it's south of this city, Bakhmut, which is kind of passed back and forth and is still very contested. The Russians are determined to take it, and the Ukrainians are saying, if you're willing to die on this hill, we're willing to, take you out. But there's a city to the to the south of it, where it seems the Russians tried to make a maneuver around to capture Bakhmut, and they were absolutely slaughtered. And I don't want to be glib about it, but frankly, that's what the circumstances were. And not only that, Tom, but as opposed to the conscripts, where we're seeing something like estimates of between 300 and 500,000 conscripts who are poised for this offensive. What they used in Volodar were one of their few remaining experienced, well-trained troops, and they tried to take this town in this maneuver around Bakhmut, and the Ukrainians just absolutely took them out with drones and artillery fire. It is not going well for the Russians, even if this is just the preliminary stages of an offensive, which will include, as I say, hundreds of thousands of potential Russian conscripts. Even their shaping and their preliminary parts of their offensive are not going well, and it doesn't bode well for whatever may come. Having said that, we are swiftly approaching the one-year anniversary of the beginning of the war, and the Russians do like to stage their military efforts kind of around anniversaries or symbolic dates on the calendar. So we fully anticipate this time next week to be pretty much either in the midst of or on the cusp of some sort of major military action.
Yikes. What is the status of, I know Elon Musk, most of the internet activity that happens in Ukraine now is coming via Starlink, which is a company Elon Musk owns. You told me last week that he's a fluent Russian speaker, and he's been kind of sucking up to Putin. Maybe my words, not yours. And he has now told the Ukrainians that he's going to limit their ability to use his Starlink system in this war. I mean, what's the status of that? What's going on with that?
Well, it does look as though what Musk has said is that he doesn't want Starlink to be used in an offensive capability. So he doesn't want them using primarily their drones to be geosynchronized with their satellite signal that comes from his Starlink system. because Musk does not want to be seen to be taking sides. That's what he says. Now, the counter argument that I have heard, not only from Ukrainians, but from people who are experts in this field or who are military experts or supporters of Ukraine, is that, there is, to say that it's being used offensively when the Russians are trying to invade a country
is insane.
Is a little, it's a hard pill to swallow because, your words, not mine.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to argue with you because look, they're being invaded. So how is it an offensive capability? They're defending themselves, even if by using these drones and the Starlink system, they are able to launch counteroffensives. There's no intention. The Ukrainians have no intention of going past their 1991 borders, which arguably, would include Crimea. But, for Musk to say this is an offensive capability, and that's why he's limiting their use of Starlink, it doesn't work.
I think his pulling these stunts is just got to be devastating the market for Teslas. I mean, all the people I know who own Teslas are wealthy people from Hollywood, basically. I know one person in New York who has one. And they're all liberals. They bought Teslas because they wanted to be, electric and avant-garde and hip and all. And now they're trying to get rid of them. I mean, they're disco. Anyway, we'll move on from that topic. I was reporting earlier in the week. This was a report. I was quoting the Washington Post, which was quoting another report suggesting that at least 6,000 Ukrainian children have been kidnapped by Russian soldiers and transported back to Russia, where they have created over 30 re-education camps. Some of these children, the youngest that they could definitely confirm was 4 months old, but most of them are, kids from 4 or 5 years old up until their early teens. And what do you know about this?
Well, Tom, this is one of the most disturbing aspects of any conflict. As you say, I've been to a few wars in my time, and it's always the kids that affect me most, and it's deeply troubling. Now, the reason why I was out in Lviv was because I spent some time with an American aid program focusing on children, and it's on my YouTube channel, and I urge not to be self-promoting too much here, but I urge folks to go and take a look at my YouTube channel, where I have the latest vlog that I put in, just simply called The Kids, because it's devastating what this war is doing to them. They are losing education. They are aware that there is a possibility that they might be killed. They are aware even that, there's a possibility there are people out there who mean them harm. And yes, we have heard many reports, and there was a U.S. report that came out just recently about this, about the fact that children are being abducted from Ukraine and forcibly moved to Russia in a cynical maneuver. And even to the extent, they're not even hiding it, Tom. They're not even hiding it. They're admitting openly. There is a video of a woman who purports to be the head of a humanitarian program in Russia, and she had a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and she proudly proclaimed that she had, quote unquote, adopted a 15-year-old boy from Mariupol so that he could be reprogrammed away from being Ukrainian, which they claim to be all Nazis, and be good Russians and good Slavic members of society. The illness in Russia runs so deep that this woman openly proclaimed that she had, again, quote unquote, adopted, but realistically kidnapped a child from Mariupol, a 15-year-old, to brainwash him away from being Ukrainian. It is one of the most cynical, deplorable, and frankly disgusting things I have ever seen in my life, and it breaks my heart deeply. As awful as things are on the front line, for me, Tom, in any war that I've ever been in, whether it was in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kurdistan, Georgia, you name it, it's the kids. It's the kids, because they don't deserve what us foolish adults do when we desire power or lust after something that somebody else has, and we use violence to attain it. It's the kids that are caught in the middle, and it breaks my heart every time. So go take a look at that vlog, and you'll see some of these children. And they'll get a glimpse of them being children again, but you just know they're never going to be the same.
Right, over at the Phil Ittner YouTube channel. Philip Ittner YouTube channel. Phil, we got about a minute and a half here before we hit a hard break. I can't stop. How is life? You're back in Kyiv. How is life there? How are you doing? How are the people around you doing?
We're all waiting for the other shoe to drop, Tom. We know that this is coming. We know the Russians. We know the enemy. We know how they behave. We're expecting attacks on the capital. We're expecting a major offensive. There are reports of airplanes being positioned in Belarus, just very close to the border, here in the center of the country, near the capital. So airstrikes might be a very real possibility, although Ukrainian air defense is still very strong. But there is a sense of preparation and anxiety, not only here in the capital, but as I say, I was out in Lviv, and that same attitude is there. I know, speaking to colleagues and friends and fighters out on the front lines, everybody is kind of getting ready for whatever this 1-year anniversary will be. 1-year anniversary on February 24th, next Friday. And there are preparations being made. But there's an awful lot of faith in the armed forces of Ukraine. They have performed excellently, and we're hoping that they can keep up that track record. But even if the Russians are able to make advances, they will not be able to take the territory that they need to conquer this country before the NATO-supplied modern armored systems, the Bradleys, the Challengers, the Leopards, the Abrams, are online here. And when that happens, this war moves to a war of maneuver. And I suspect, and we certainly all hope here, that it will mean the Ukrainians will gain the upper hand and possibly push back the Russians to those 91 borders.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears. Phil Ittner, Philip Ittner, Ittner, Philip, Ittner over on YouTube. Check out his video blogs there. Phil, thanks again for the report. It's always good checking in with you. Stay safe, my friend.
We'll talk again soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Phil. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, good news about electrification of America and bizarre news out of Kentucky having to do with abortion. I'll tell you about those right after the break.